Have you ever met someone who could fool everyone in the room except you? Lyric Hayes had perfected the art of pretending. At 27 years old, she had spent the last 5 years building a flawless persona. Successful event planner, charming socialite, the woman everyone wanted at their party because she made everything look effortless. Her smile was bright, her laugh infectious, her conversation sparkled with just the right amount of wit and warmth. It was all an act. A carefully constructed performance designed to hide the fact that she was drowning. The truth was that Lyric Hayes was broke. Her event planning company was 3 months behind on payments. Her apartment lease was up for renewal and she could not afford it. Her credit cards were maxed out, and the loan sharks she had borrowed from to keep her business afloat were getting impatient. Very impatient. But nobody knew. Because Lyric was an expert at making everyone believe everything was perfect. The charity gala at the Portland Art Museum should have been her triumph. She had spent 6 months planning every detail. The guest list included Portland's wealthiest elite, politicians, business owners, and several donors whose contributions would fund youth arts programs for the next 3 years. Everything was perfect. The champagne fountain, the silent auction, the string quartet, the catering from the city's most exclusive restaurant. Everything except Lyric's mounting panic as she calculated how much of tonight's budget had come from borrowed money she had no way to repay. Smile, she reminded herself as she moved through the crowd, greeting guests with practiced warmth. Just keep smiling. Mr. Castellano, she said, approaching a silver-haired man in an expensive tuxedo. Thank you so much for coming. Your donation is going to change so many young lives. The pleasure is mine, Miss Hayes. Richard Castellano took her hand with grandfatherly warmth. You have outdone yourself tonight. Everything is magnificent. You are too kind. Lyric's smile never wavered even as she spotted one of the loan shark's associates across the room, watching her with cold eyes. We are so grateful for your generosity. She moved on, greeting more guests, accepting more compliments, her face aching from holding the smile in place. Nobody suspected. Nobody saw the fear beneath her polished exterior. Nobody except the man watching her from the bar with eyes that seemed to see straight through her performance. Enzo Marchetti had not planned to attend the charity gala. He had a business empire to run, problems to solve, and very little patience for society events where wealthy people congratulated themselves for donating money they would barely miss. But his mother had insisted, You need to show your face at these things, Enzo. People need to see you as more than just a businessman. They need to see you care about the community. So here he was, nursing an overpriced whiskey and watching Portland's elite preen and network and pretend they were saving the world one tax-deductible donation at a time. That was when he saw her. The event planner was making her rounds, and she was very good at her job. Enzo had been observing people his entire life. It was a survival skill in his line of work. He could read body language, spot lies, identify threats before they materialized. And this woman, with her bright smile and animated conversation, was performing the most convincing act he had seen in years. But it was an act. He was certain of it. Her smile was perfect. Too perfect. It never changed, never faltered, no matter who she was talking to, but it did not reach her eyes. Those eyes, a warm brown that should have sparkled with the enthusiasm her voice conveyed, were hollow, calculating. Behind that cheerful exterior, she was measuring, assessing, strategizing, and she was terrified. Enzo watched as she excused herself from a conversation with a city councilman and headed toward the service hallway, her smile finally dropping the moment she thought no one was watching. The exhaustion and fear that replaced it were so stark that Enzo found himself following her without consciously deciding to do so. He caught up to her outside the bathroom, where she stood with her back against the wall, eyes closed, breathing carefully like she was fighting off a panic attack. That is quite a performance you're giving in there, he said quietly. Lyric's eyes snapped open. For just a second, he saw raw fear flash across her face before the smile returned. Slightly less bright than before, but still in place. I am sorry. Do I know you? No, but I know you. Or rather, I know what you're doing. Excuse me? Lyric's voice had an edge to it now. Her mask was slipping. Enzo stepped closer, studying her face with the intensity that usually made people uncomfortable. You are drowning. Financially, I would guess. Probably borrowed money you cannot repay. Probably from people who do not take no for an answer. And you are in here trying to remember how to breathe while out there you smile like your life is perfect. Lyric stared at him, her mouth opening and closing without sound. How did you know? Your smile does not reach your eyes. Enzo tilted his head. Everyone else believes your act. But I have seen that look before. That specific combination of desperation and determination. You are running out of options and you are terrified someone will notice. Who are you? Enzo Marchetti. And before you panic further, I'm not here to cause you more problems. I am here because I recognize a survivor when I see one. Lyric's laugh was bitter. A survivor? That is an interesting way to describe someone who is about to lose everything. Surviving is not the same as winning, Enzo said. Surviving means you are still standing despite the circumstances trying to knock you down. You are still standing, Miss Hayes. That counts for something. Not for much longer. Lyric's voice cracked slightly. I have 3 days to come up with $50,000, or the men I borrowed from are going to make me regret every life choice that led me here. 50,000. Enzo considered this. That is what you owe? That is the interest on what I owe. The principal is closer to 200,000. Jesus. What did you need $200,000 for? To keep my business from collapsing, to pay my staff, to maintain the illusion that I am successful so clients keep hiring me. Lyric's hands were shaking now. I thought I could catch up. I thought if I just kept booking bigger events, kept building my reputation, I could pay it back before anyone noticed. But every month the interest compounds. Every month I fall further behind. And now they have decided I am more trouble than I'm worth unless I pay up immediately. Who did you borrow from? Lyric hesitated, then said quietly, Viktor Petrov? Enzo's expression darkened. Viktor Petrov was Russian mob. Small time but vicious, with a reputation for making examples out of people who did not pay their debts. You borrowed from the Russians? I did not know they were Russian mob when I started. I thought they were just a private lending service. By the time I realized what I'd gotten into, it was too late to back out. And now you are 3 days from whatever Victor considers appropriate punishment for non-payment. Enzo pulled out his phone. How much are you short? All of it. Lyric's voice was barely a whisper. I do not have $50,000. I do not have $5,000. I have been selling everything I own just to make minimum payments, and it is not enough. Enzo typed something into his phone, then looked back at her. Go back to your event, Miss Hayes. Smile at your guests. Accept their compliments. And when the night is over, meet me at Marcello's on 3rd Avenue. Do you know it? The Italian restaurant? Yes, but why would I? Because I am going to make you an offer. Enzo pocketed his phone. One that solves your immediate problem with Victor and gives you a chance to actually fix your situation, instead of just delaying the inevitable. What kind of offer? The kind that requires trust and honesty. 2 things you are clearly short on, but I think you might be capable of if properly motivated. Enzo stepped back. Midnight. Marcello's. I will be waiting. He walked away before she could respond, leaving Lyric standing in the hallway with her heart pounding and her mind racing. She should not trust a stranger who could read her so easily. She should not accept mysterious offers from men who appeared out of nowhere, claiming they could solve her problems. But 3 days from now, Viktor Petrov was going to send someone to collect on her debt, and Lyric did not have $50,000. She did not have any good options left, so at midnight, after the gala ended successfully, and the last donor had been thanked, and the venue had been cleaned and locked up, Lyric stood outside Marcello's trying to decide if she was brave or stupid for showing up. The restaurant was closed to the public, but the door was unlocked. Inside, the lights were dimmed, and Enzo sat at a corner table with 2 glasses of wine already poured. You came, he said as she approached. I was not certain you would. I do not have many choices left. Lyric sat down across from him but did not touch the wine. What is this offer you mentioned? Enzo pushed a folder across the table. I need someone who can move through high society without raising suspicion. Someone who can attend events, make connections, gather information. Someone who everyone trusts because she seems harmless and charming. You want me to spy for you. I want you to do what you already do. Plan events, attend galas, network with Portland's elite. Only now, you will be paying attention to specific conversations, noting who is meeting with whom, reporting back to me about deals being discussed, alliances being formed, information I cannot access because people are afraid of me, because you are Mafia. Lyric had pieced it together from the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, the casual authority in his voice. Because I am a businessman with interests that sometimes conflict with other people's interests. Enzo took a sip of his wine. I need eyes and ears in places where my presence would shut down conversations. You need money and protection from Victor. We can help each other. And if I say no, then you walk out of here and deal with Victor on your own. Enzo's voice was matter of fact. I will not force you, Miss Hayes, but I will also not save you if you refuse my help and then come begging for it later when Victor's men are breaking your fingers. The casual violence of the image made Lyric's stomach turn. How much are you offering? I will pay off your debt to Victor. All of it, principal and interest. I will also pay you $5,000 a month for your services. In 6 months, if you have proven yourself trustworthy and useful, we renegotiate terms. Maybe I buy your company outright and put you on legitimate salary. Maybe we go our separate ways. But for now, this is the offer. 6 months of work in exchange for your freedom from Victor and enough money to actually rebuild your life. Why me? Lyric asked. You do not know me? You do not know if I can be trusted? I know enough. Enzo leaned back in his chair. You are smart enough to build a successful business even while drowning in debt. You are desperate enough to take risks. And most importantly, you are already an expert at pretending. You have been performing for so long that nobody suspects the truth. That skill is exactly what I need. What kind of information are you looking for? Business deals, political favors. Who is planning to expand into whose territory? Who is forming alliances with whom? I do not need you to steal documents or plant bugs. I just need you to listen and remember. Can you do that? Lyric thought about Viktor Petrov, about the text messages that had been getting increasingly threatening, about the man at the gala tonight who had watched her with cold calculation. She thought about her business, which she had built from nothing, which meant everything to her, which was about to be crushed under the weight of her own desperate choices. Yes, she said, I can do that. Good. Enzo pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. There is a cashier's check for $250,000. Take it to Victor tomorrow. Pay off your debt. Tell him a silent investor bought into your company. Make up whatever story you need to make it believable. After that, you start working for me? Lyric opened the envelope with shaking hands. The check was real, made out to her company for exactly the amount Enzo had specified. This is too much, she whispered. Consider the extra $50,000 a signing bonus. You are going to need it to catch up on all the other bills you have been neglecting while fighting off Victor. Tears pricked at Lyric's eyes. She blinked them back furiously, refusing to break down in front of this stranger who had just handed her a lifeline. Why are you doing this? Because I need someone with your skills. Enzo's expression was unreadable. And because I know what it is like to be drowning while everyone around you thinks you are swimming. I know what it is like to wear a mask so convincing that nobody sees the person underneath. I recognize it because I lived it. Still live it, in many ways. Lyric looked at this man who had somehow seen through her performance when everyone else was fooled, who had offered her salvation without demanding anything degrading in return, who spoke about masks and drowning like he understood exactly what those words meant. What is your real business, Mr. Marchetti? She asked quietly. What do you actually do when you are not rescuing desperate event planners from Russian loan sharks? Enzo smiled, and it was the first real expression she had seen from him. Everything and nothing. I own restaurants, real estate, import-export businesses, all legitimate on paper. But I also move in circles where legitimacy is negotiable. I handle problems that cannot be solved through legal channels. I make arrangements that benefit all parties involved as long as everyone follows the rules. Does that frighten you? It should. But Lyric found that she was not frightened. She was exhausted and desperate and out of options. And this man, dangerous as he might be, had given her something nobody else had offered in 5 years. A way out. When do I start? She asked. Tomorrow. Enzo pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. That is my private number. If you need anything, call me. If you learn anything useful, call me. If Victor or anyone else gives you trouble, call me immediately. You work for me now, Miss Hayes. That means you are under my protection. Nobody touches you. Without answering to me, the possessiveness in his voice should have set off alarm bells. Instead, Lyric felt something like relief wash over her. For 5 years she had been alone, fighting alone, drowning alone, pretending alone. Now, for better or worse, She had an ally. Over the next 2 months, Lyric learned what it meant to work for Enzo Marchetti. She paid off Victor Petrov the next day, enduring his suspicious questions about her sudden windfall with the cover story Enzo had helped her prepare. A silent investor bought 40% of her company, she told Victor, producing paperwork that looked completely legitimate. Real contracts drawn up by real lawyers that would hold up under scrutiny. Victor did not like it, but he took the money. And when Lyric walked out of that meeting without owing him anything, she felt lighter than she had in years. Then she started gathering information. It was surprisingly easy. People talked freely around her because she was just the event planner. Background noise, harmless. A businessman bragging about a land deal. A politician complaining about zoning restrictions. A developer discussing plans to buy up properties in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Conversations that meant nothing to most people, but apparently meant everything to Enzo. She would report back to him twice a week, meeting at Marcello's after hours, or occasionally at his penthouse office downtown. He never asked for more than she had agreed to provide. Never pushed her boundaries. Never made her feel unsafe. But the more time Lyric spent in Enzo's world, the more she realized how carefully he operated. He was not the violent thug she had expected. He was strategic, calculating, always thinking 3 moves ahead. He used information as his primary weapon, not force, and he had built a network of contacts that spanned multiple industries and social circles. The first major assignment came 8 weeks into their arrangement. Enzo called her on a Wednesday afternoon, his voice tight with urgency. "I need you at the Heathman Hotel tonight. Room 417. There is a meeting happening that I need eyes on." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind where I cannot be present without raising alarms. But you, as the event coordinator consulting on a future wedding, would be perfectly normal." Enzo sent her a file through encrypted email. "Memorize these faces. These are the men who will be in that room. I need to know what they are discussing." Lyric studied the photos. She recognized 2 of the men, city councilmen who had been at several events she had worked. The third man was unfamiliar, but the file identified him as Malcolm Torres, a property developer from Los Angeles with suspected ties to organized crime. What am I looking for specifically? Any mention of the waterfront development project? Any discussion of permits, bribes, or political favors? Any indication of who is funding Torres's expansion into Portland? Enzo paused. "And Lyric? Be careful. These are not nice men. If they suspect you are anything other than what you appear to be, things could get dangerous very quickly." Lyric felt her pulse quicken. This was different from casual eavesdropping at parties. This was targeted intelligence gathering with real stakes. "Should I be worried?" "Not if you stay in character. You are Lyric Hayes, successful event planner, consulting on a potential client's wedding. Nothing more. You smile, you take notes, you ask appropriate questions about room capacity and catering options, and you listen to everything they say when they think you are not paying attention. What if they ask me to leave? Then you leave. Do not push. Do not raise suspicions. Better to get partial information than to blow your cover completely." That night, Lyric arrived at the Heathman dressed in her professional best. Tailored navy suit, leather portfolio, her brightest smile firmly in place. She knocked on the door of room 417 at precisely 7:15, when the meeting would be in full swing but not yet concluded. A young man answered the door, clearly security. "Can I help you?" "I am so sorry to interrupt." Lyric consulted her portfolio with just the right amount of professional embarrassment. "I am supposed to be meeting with a client about wedding venue options, and I seem to have the wrong room. Is this the Montgomery party?" The security guard looked past her to the 3 men seated around the suite's dining table. They had paused their conversation, watching the interruption with varying levels of irritation. "Wrong room?" the guard said curtly. "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry." Lyric started to turn away, then paused as if just noticing the view from the suite's windows. "This room has an incredible view, though. Is this suite available for private events? I have a client who specifically requested something with views of the city." One of the councilmen, David Crawford, spoke up before the security guard could shut the door. "Miss Hayes, is that you?" Lyric turned back, her smile brightening with recognition. "Councilman Crawford. What a surprise. I did not realize you were staying here tonight. Business meeting." Crawford gestured her inside, much to the security guard's obvious displeasure. "But since you are here, you should see the view. It really is spectacular. We were just discussing some development projects, actually. Perhaps you can offer an event planner's perspective on the waterfront area. I would not want to intrude on your meeting." "Nonsense." Crawford pulled out a chair. "Malcolm, this is Lyric Hayes, one of Portland's premier event planners. She has connections throughout the city's elite social circles. Her opinion on the waterfront development could actually be quite valuable." Malcolm Torres studied Lyric with cold calculation. She recognized the look. He was assessing her, trying to determine if she was a threat or an opportunity. She kept her smile bright and guileless, playing the role of harmless socialite perfectly. "The waterfront is tricky right now," Lyric said, taking the offered seat and pulling out her tablet as if to take notes. "A lot of the businesses down there are legacy establishments, family-owned, very connected to the community. Any development project would need to be sensitive to that or risk significant backlash." "Backlash can be managed," Torres said dismissively. "Most of those businesses are barely profitable. They will be happy to sell once they realize what their properties could be worth." "Perhaps." Lyric tapped notes into her tablet, her voice carefully neutral. "But I have done events for several waterfront business owners. They are very proud of their heritage, very connected politically, the kind of people who can make things difficult if they feel threatened. Which is why we have the council votes we need," the second councilman, Robert Thompson, interjected. "Once the zoning changes go through, most of those businesses will not be viable anyway. The new regulations will require upgrades they cannot afford." Lyric kept her expression pleasantly interested even as her mind raced. This was exactly the kind of information Enzo needed. Specifics about political corruption, details about the planned displacement of local businesses. "How many votes do you have secured?" she asked, as if this were a normal business discussion rather than conspiracy. "Crawford and Thompson are with me. The third councilman, Martin Garcia, confirmed. Marcus Chen is still on the fence, but we are working on him. Once we have 4 solid votes, the rest will fall in line. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of this much development money." "When is the vote scheduled?" Lyric asked, still tapping notes. 3 weeks, Torres said, "which gives us time to finalize the acquisition strategy. We start with the weakest targets first, the businesses that are already struggling. Make them generous offers. Then we move on to the more stubborn holdouts once the zoning changes make it clear their options are limited." The casual cruelty in his voice made Lyric's stomach turn, but she kept her professional smile in place and asked questions about venue capacity and catering logistics, playing her role perfectly while absorbing every detail of their conspiracy. When she finally excused herself 20 minutes later, claiming she had found her actual appointment in a different room, Lyric walked calmly to the elevator. Only when the doors closed and she was alone did she allow herself to breathe. She called Enzo from her car. "I have everything you need. Tell me." Lyric relayed the entire conversation, including the names of the councilmen who had been bought, the timing of the vote, and the specific strategy for displacing the waterfront businesses. When she finished, Enzo was quiet for a long moment. "You did exceptionally well," he said finally. "This is exactly what I needed. The specificity, the timeline, the players involved. You have given me enough to stop this before it starts. What are you going to do?" "What I always do. Apply pressure in the right places. Remind certain people that their decisions have consequences. Make sure those waterfront businesses know what is coming so they can organize resistance." Enzo paused. "You were brilliant tonight, Lyric. Walking into that room, gaining their trust, extracting information without raising any alarms. That takes real skill. I just played the role I have been playing for years. Harmless, helpful, no threat to anyone, except now you are using that performance to protect people instead of just protecting yourself. That matters." Enzo's voice softened. "Get some rest. We will talk more tomorrow." But Lyric could not rest. She kept thinking about Malcolm Torres and his casual plan to destroy family businesses for profit. About David Crawford and Robert Thompson, elected officials who had sold out their constituents for development money. About all the people who would lose everything if Enzo had not asked her to gather this information. For the first time in 5 years, Lyric felt like her skills were being used for something that actually mattered. Not just survival, not just maintaining appearances, but actually making a difference. The next morning, Enzo sent her a news article. The waterfront development project had hit an unexpected snag. An anonymous tip to a local investigative journalist had revealed the bribery scheme, and both Crawford and Thompson were under investigation. The zoning vote had been postponed indefinitely pending the inquiry. "You did this?" Lyric texted him. "We did this," Enzo corrected. "You provided the information. I made sure it reached the right people. This is what partnership looks like." After that, something shifted between them. The twice-weekly meetings at Marcello's started lasting longer. They would discuss business, yes, but also other things. Enzo told her about growing up in Sicily, about his father's import business that was only partially legitimate, about learning early that survival meant being smarter and more ruthless than everyone around you. Lyric told him about her own childhood in foster care, about aging out of the system at 18 with no family and no safety net, about building her business from absolutely nothing because the alternative was giving up. You were drowning long before you borrowed from Victor, Enzo observed one night over wine. You have been drowning your entire life, just in different ways. Does it get easier? Lyric asked. The drowning. Does it ever stop? No. Enzo's honesty was brutal and somehow comforting. You just learn to swim better. You learn when to fight the current and when to let it carry you. You learn who to trust to throw you a lifeline and who will use your desperation against you. But the drowning never completely stops. You just get better at surviving it. That is depressing. That is realistic. Enzo leaned forward. But here's what I have learned. Swimming is easier with someone beside you, someone who understands the current, someone who will not abandon you when you start to sink. Is that what we are doing? Swimming together? I do not know. Enzo's dark eyes held hers. What do you think we are doing, Lyric? The use of her first name made her breath catch. He had called her Miss Hayes for 2 months. The shift to her given name felt intimate, significant. I think I am trusting you, she said quietly, which terrifies me because I have not trusted anyone in years, not since I learned that most people will only help you if there is something in it for them. I am helping you because there is something in it for me, Enzo pointed out. You provide valuable information. I provide money and protection. This is a business arrangement, is it? Lyric challenged. Because it stopped feeling like business about 4 weeks ago. Now it feels like something else. What does it feel like? Like maybe I found someone who sees past my performance, who knows I am drowning but helps me swim anyway, who does not need me to pretend everything is perfect because he understands that nothing is ever perfect. Lyric set down her wine glass. What does it feel like to you? Enzo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, dangerous. Dangerous? Because I do not let people get close. Not really. I have business associates and family obligations and women I take to bed, but never to my heart. That is how I have survived this long, by keeping everyone at a distance where they cannot hurt me. But you make me want to break that rule. Enzo's admission was almost reluctant. You make me want to let someone in. And that is the most dangerous thing I could possibly do. Why is it dangerous to let someone in? Because once you care about someone, they become a weakness, a vulnerability that enemies can exploit. Enzo stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. In my world, weaknesses get you killed, or get the people you care about killed. Letting you matter to me puts you at risk. I am already at risk, Lyric pointed out. I work for you. That alone makes me a target if anyone wants to hurt you. Working for me is different than mattering to me. If you just work for me, you are replaceable. Useful, but not essential. But if you matter, if you become someone I care about protecting beyond our professional arrangement, then you become a permanent target. Every enemy I have will see you as leverage. So, what are you saying? That we should maintain professional distance? That we should ignore whatever this is growing between us? I am saying I do not know. Enzo turned to face her. I am saying that for the first time in 15 years, I met someone who makes me question my own rules, who makes me want things I thought I had given up on, who sees through my performance the same way I saw through hers. Lyric stood and crossed to where he stood by the window. You know what I think? What? I think we are, both so used to drowning alone that we do not know how to accept help when it is offered. We have both spent so long performing, wearing masks, pretending to be fine, that we have forgotten what it feels like to be seen, really seen, by someone who understands. And what do you think we should do about that? Stop pretending, at least with each other. Lyric reached up and touched his face gently. I am tired of wearing masks, Enzo. I am tired of smiling when I'm scared. I am tired of acting like everything is fine when I'm falling apart. With you, I do not have to do that. You see past the performance, and I see past yours. Maybe that is enough to build something real on, or maybe it is enough to destroy us both. Maybe. Lyric's smile was small but genuine. But I would rather drown with someone I trust than survive alone pretending everything is fine. Enzo pulled her close, his hand cradling the back of her head. This is a mistake, he murmured against her hair. Probably, Lyric agreed. But let us make it anyway. I am going to kiss you now, he said quietly. And if you do not want that, you need to tell me right now. Because once I start, I am not sure I can stop. Lyric should have said no. She should have maintained professional boundaries. She should have protected herself from getting involved with someone so dangerous, so complicated, so completely wrong for her on paper. Instead, she said, "Then do not stop." When Enzo kissed her, it felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. Terrifying and safe, dangerous and perfect. His hands cradled her face like she was something precious, and she wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him back with years of loneliness and longing poured into that single moment. They made love that night in Enzo's penthouse, and it was nothing like the performances Lyric had given in previous relationships. There was no pretending, no calculating how to please him, no wearing a mask, even in intimacy. She was just herself, vulnerable and real, and Enzo treated her like she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He traced the curves of her body like he was memorizing every inch of her, whispering words in Italian that she did not understand but felt in her bones. When he finally joined with her, it was slow and deliberate, their eyes locked together in a way that felt more intimate than any physical act. Afterwards, lying tangled together in his bed, Lyric traced patterns on his chest and tried to process what had just happened. "We probably should not have done that," she said. "Probably not." Enzo pressed a kiss to her forehead. "But I am not sorry. Neither am I. That is what scares me." "What scares you specifically?" "All of it. This. Us. The fact that I am falling for you and I have no idea if you feel the same way, or if this was just physical, or if I'm completely misreading everything." Lyric laughed shakily. "I am usually better at performing certainty even when I'm terrified. But with you, I cannot seem to maintain the act." "Good." Enzo tilted her face up to look at him. "Because I am falling for you too. Completely, terrifyingly falling for you. And I do not want you to perform with me. I want you to be real, even when real is messy and uncertain and scared." "You are sure?" "I am sure." Enzo kissed her softly. "I am sure that you are the first person in 15 years who has seen past my performance. I am sure that being with you feels like finally being able to breathe. I am sure that I want to see where this goes, consequences and complications and all." Lyric curled against him, feeling something she had not felt in years. Safe, seen, valued for who she actually was rather than who she pretended to be. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure, but she was done running from good things just because they scared her. She was done performing safety while remaining isolated. If she was going to drown, at least now she would be drowning with someone who understood. Over the next 3 months, Lyric and Enzo built something that felt impossibly right despite all the ways it was complicated. She continued her work as his information gatherer, but now their meetings were also dates. Business and pleasure blending together in ways that should have been unprofessional, but somehow just worked. Enzo introduced her to his family. His mother, Rosa, a formidable woman in her 60s, who sized Lyric up with sharp eyes and apparently decided she was acceptable because she started calling with recipe advice and invitations to Sunday dinner. His brother, Giulio, younger by 3 years, who teased Enzo mercilessly about finally finding someone who could put up with him. His sister, Francesca, who pulled Lyric aside at their first family dinner and said, "He is happier with you than I have seen him in years. Do not break his heart." "I do not plan to," Lyric had promised. "Good. Because if you do, I will make you regret it." Francesca smiled sweetly. "But I do not think you will. I think you are exactly what he needs." Lyric introduced Enzo to the closest thing she had to family. Her former foster sister, Jasmine, who she had stayed in touch with over the years, who took one look at Enzo and whispered, "Girl, that man is dangerous and completely in love with you. Do not mess this up. I'm trying not to." "Good. Because men like that do not come around often. Men who actually see you and like what they see. That is rare." Jasmine squeezed her hand. "You deserve this, Lyric. You deserve to be happy for real instead of just pretending." "I am learning that," Lyric said, slowly, "but I am learning." The first time Enzo touched her beyond professional courtesy had been that night at Marcello's, but the first time he protected her publicly came a few weeks later, after a particularly difficult meeting with a client who had tried to stiff Lyric on payment. She had handled it with her usual grace, but when she met Enzo afterward, her hands were shaking with suppressed anger. "What happened?" he asked immediately. Lyric told him about the client who had tried to claim the work was substandard, who had offered half the agreed-upon payment, who had threatened to badmouth her business if she pushed back. "Just typical stuff," she finished with a brittle laugh. "People thinking they can take advantage because I am nice." Enzo's jaw tightened. "What is the client's name?" Lyric told him, then regretted it when she saw his expression. "What are you going to do?" "Have a conversation." Enzo pulled out his phone. "Make it clear that contracts are binding and payment is not optional. You do not have to do that." "I handled it." "You handled it by accepting less than you are owed because you are afraid of damaging your reputation." Enzo looked up from his phone, his dark eyes intense. "That is not handling it, Lyric. That is letting someone exploit your fear. I will not stand for that." "Why do you care so much?" "Because you work for me now. That means you are under my protection. Nobody gets to cheat you or threaten you or take advantage of your professional courtesy, not without answering to me." The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, Lyric felt something warm unfurl in her chest. Nobody had protected her since she was a child. Nobody had cared enough to stand up for her. The feeling was overwhelming and terrifying, and strangely wonderful all at once. "Thank you," she said quietly. Enzo reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was warm, solid, grounding. "You do not have to thank me for basic decency, Lyric. You do not have to be grateful that someone treats you with respect. That should be the baseline, not the exception. In my experience, basic decency is pretty exceptional. Then you have been dealing with the wrong people." Enzo squeezed her hand gently. "You deserve better than that." They were good together. Better than either of them had expected. Enzo taught her how to read people the way he did, how to spot lies, identify threats, navigate dangerous situations with grace and confidence. He taught her that strength was not about never being afraid. It was about being afraid and doing what needed to be done anyway. Lyric taught him how to trust again, how to let someone in without expecting betrayal, how to care about someone without seeing it as a weakness. She taught him that vulnerability was not the same as failure. Their relationship deepened in ways neither had anticipated. Enzo started leaving small gifts in her apartment, nothing extravagant. A book he thought she would like, flowers from the market near Marcello's, a scarf in her favorite color that he noticed her admiring in a shop window. Each gift showed that he paid attention, that he noticed the small details of her life. Lyric reciprocated in her own way. She learned his favorite foods and surprised him with home-cooked meals on nights when she knew he had difficult meetings. She remembered the names of his men and asked about their families. She treated his world with respect instead of fear, and his people loved her for it. One night, about 4 months into their relationship, Lyric woke to find Enzo sitting on the edge of the bed, staring out the window at the city lights. "What is wrong?" she asked, sitting up and wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Nothing. Everything." Enzo's voice was rough. "I had a dream about my father. Tell me." He taught me that caring about people was dangerous, that love was a weakness enemies could exploit. Enzo turned to look at her, and I believed him for 20 years. I built my entire life around that belief. But then I met you, and everything I thought I knew started to crumble. Is that a bad thing? "I do not know." Enzo pulled her into his lap, holding her close. "All I know is that the thought of losing you terrifies me more than any business rival ever could. And I do not know what to do with that feeling." "You do not have to do anything with it," Lyric said softly. "You just have to let yourself feel it. That is what love is. Terrifying and wonderful and completely worth it." "How do you know?" "Because I feel it too." Lyric kissed him gently. "Every day I wake up terrified that this will end, that you will realize I am too much trouble, that you will get tired of my damage and find someone easier. But then I see you, and I remember that you chose me, that you keep choosing me, and that matters more than the fear. I will always choose you," Enzo said, "even when it is complicated, even when it is dangerous. You are worth every risk." They made love again that night, slow and tender, with whispered words and gentle touches that spoke of something deeper than passion, something like permanence. But nothing good lasts forever. And in Enzo's world, happiness was always temporary. The threat came from an unexpected direction 5 months into their arrangement. Viktor Petrov, the Russian loan shark Lyric had paid off months earlier, had apparently not forgotten about her. Or more accurately, he had not forgiven the fact that she had paid him off and escaped his control. Enzo received the warning from one of his contacts in the Russian organization. Victor is talking about your event planner. He is angry that she got away from him. He is telling people that nobody walks away from his debts without consequences, that he is going to make an example of her. Enzo's blood ran cold. When? Soon. My contact could not give me specifics, but Victor has been asking questions about her, where she lives, where she works, who she spends time with. He is planning something, and it is not going to be pleasant. Enzo called Lyric immediately. Pack a bag. You are moving into my building tonight. What? Why? Because Viktor Petrov is planning to hurt you. I do not know when or how, but I'm not taking chances. You are moving somewhere I can protect you. We can argue about it later, but right now you need to trust me and do what I say. Lyric did not argue. She had learned over the past 5 months that when Enzo's voice took on that particular edge, it meant real danger. She packed a bag and was waiting in her apartment when his car arrived 20 minutes later. The penthouse Enzo brought her to was on the top floor of one of downtown Portland's most secure buildings. 24-hour security, cameras on every floor, a private elevator that required a key to access. It was fortress-like in its protection. You live here? Lyric asked, looking around at the space that was somehow both luxurious and austere. Expensive furniture, but few personal touches, like a hotel suite rather than a home. I stay here, Enzo corrected. I would not call it living. But it is secure, and that is what matters right now. How long do I need to stay? Until I deal with Victor. Enzo's jaw was tight. He should have left well enough alone. You paid your debt. But apparently that is not enough for him. He wants to punish you for having the audacity to escape. What are you going to do? What I always do. I am going to make him an offer he cannot refuse. One that makes it clear that hurting you would be a fatal mistake. The conversation happened 2 days later. Enzo arranged a meeting with Viktor Petrov at a neutral location, a warehouse on the industrial east side that was technically owned by neither party. Lyric wanted to go with him. Enzo refused. This is not a negotiation you need to be present for, he told her firmly. In fact, it works better if you are not there. If Victor sees you, it might escalate things. Better if I handle this man to man. But what if something goes wrong? Nothing is going to go wrong. Enzo cupped her face in his hands. I have been handling men like Viktor Petrov since before you learned to drive. Trust me to protect you. I do trust you. That is what scares me. Enzo kissed her forehead. I will be back in 2 hours. Stay in the penthouse. Do not answer the door for anyone except me. And if I do not call you by 7 tonight, contact my brother Giulio. His number is in my phone. He will know what to do. The last part made Lyric's stomach drop. Why would I need to contact your brother? You will not. But I always plan for worst-case scenarios. That is why I'm still alive. The meeting with Viktor Petrov went exactly as Enzo expected, which was to say it started with posturing and threats and ended with Victor understanding that pursuing Lyric Hayes was a death sentence. She paid you what she owed, Enzo said, his voice cold. With interest, your business with her is concluded. Victor, a thick-necked man in his 50s with cold eyes and a reputation for brutality, sneered. She embarrassed me, made me look weak. I cannot let that stand. You made yourself look weak by lending to desperate people and then acting surprised when they find better options. Enzo leaned back in his chair. Lyric Hayes works for me now. That means she is under my protection. You touch her, you answer to me. You think I'm afraid of you, Marchetti? I think you should be. Enzo's smile was sharp. Because I know things about your operation that would be very interesting to certain federal agencies. I know about your trafficking routes, your money laundering schemes, the offshore accounts where you hide your profits. I have been collecting information on you for years, Victor. Insurance, in case I ever needed it. Victor's face paled slightly. You are bluffing. Am I? Enzo pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. That contains copies of financial records, shipping manifests, and testimony from 2 of your former associates, who would be happy to cooperate with authorities in exchange for witness protection. All of that goes to the FBI the moment anything happens to Lyric Hayes. Or to me, for that matter. I have people with instructions to release everything if I disappear or die under suspicious circumstances. Victor opened the envelope with shaking hands. His face went from pale to red as he scanned the contents. Where did you get this? I told you. I have been collecting information for years. I collect information on everyone who might potentially become a problem. That is how I stay alive in this business. Enzo stood. So, here is what is going to happen. You are going to forget about Lyric Hayes. You're going to stop asking questions about her. You're going to tell your people that she is off limits. And in return, I will keep this information to myself. We both walk away from this meeting with no blood spilled and no bodies dropped. Does that sound acceptable? Victor's jaw clenched. He knew he was beaten. He knew that Enzo held all the cards, and he knew that fighting would only accelerate his own destruction. Fine, he ground out. She is off limits. Good. Enzo headed for the door, then paused. And Victor? If I find out you sent someone after her anyway, if anything happens to her that traces back to you even indirectly, that information goes public, and I will personally make sure you regret it before the feds take you down. We clear? Crystal? Enzo walked out of the warehouse and called Lyric immediately. It is done. You are safe. The relief in her voice was palpable. What happened? I reminded Victor that some debts are not worth collecting. He will not bother you again. Are you sure? I am sure. Enzo climbed into his car. I am coming home, and then I need you to do something for me. What? Stop pretending you are just working for me. Stop pretending this is just a professional arrangement. Stop pretending you do not care about me the way I care about you. Lyric's breath caught. Enzo! I am tired of us both performing, Lyric. I am tired of pretending this is temporary or transactional or anything other than what it actually is. I am in love with you. Completely, terrifyingly in love with you. And I think you feel the same way, but you are afraid to admit it because admitting it makes it real. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several heartbeats. Then Lyric said, You are right. About which part? All of it. I am afraid. I am terrified, actually, because falling in love with you means trusting you with parts of myself I have never shown anyone. It means letting you see me when I'm not performing, when I'm not strong or capable or put together. It means being vulnerable in ways I have spent my entire life avoiding. And I am doing it anyway. Lyric's voice was thick with emotion. Because you are worth the risk. Because being with you feels like finally being able to breathe after drowning for years. Because when I am with you, I do not have to pretend. I can just be myself, and that is enough. Come downstairs, Enzo said, right now. Why? Because I need to see you. I need to hold you. I need to kiss you and tell you in person that you are everything I never knew I was looking for. Lyric met him in the lobby of his building. They stood there in the middle of the marble floor, ignoring the security guard's curious glance, and just held each other like they were both drowning and had finally found something solid to cling to. I love you, Enzo whispered against her hair. I love you, and I'm done pretending I do not. I love you too, Lyric whispered back, and I am done performing. From now on, what you see is what you get. All the messy, broken, imperfect parts. Those are my favorite parts, Enzo said. They are the parts that match mine. 6 months after that night in Marcello's, when Enzo first saw through her performance, Lyric stood in front of the mirror in Enzo's bedroom and practiced her smile. Not the fake one, the real one. The one that reached her eyes, the one that reflected actual happiness instead of desperate performance, the one she had worn so rarely in her life that it still felt unfamiliar on her face. What are you doing? Enzo asked from the doorway. Practicing being happy. Lyric turned to face him. It is strange. I spent so many years pretending to be fine that actually being fine feels weird. Like I am still performing, except this time the performance is real. That does not make sense. I know, but that is where I am. Genuinely happy for the first time in years, and my brain keeps waiting for the other shoe to drop. Keeps expecting this to be temporary or conditional or secretly terrible. Enzo crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. It is not temporary, it is not conditional, and it is definitely not terrible. This is real, Lyric. You and me and the life we are building together, That is as real as it gets. Even though we started with a business arrangement, especially because we started with a business arrangement. Enzo kissed her forehead. We saw each other clearly from the beginning. No illusions, no pretending. Just two people who recognized the same survival instinct in each other and decided to stop surviving alone. That is the least romantic thing anyone has ever said to me, Lyric teased. Fine, let me try again. Enzo pulled back to look at her, his expression serious. You are the most beautiful woman I have ever known. Not because of how you look, though you are stunning, but because of who you are when you stop performing. When you let me see the scared, brave, brilliant person underneath all the masks. That person is extraordinary, and I fall more in love with her every single day. That is better, Lyric admitted, her eyes stinging with tears. Much better. Lyric's event planning company, now financially stable thanks to Enzo's backing and legitimate investors he had introduced her to, had grown significantly. She still worked for Enzo, still attended events and gathered useful information, but now it felt less like necessity and more like partnership. They were building something together, both in business and in life. Enzo had started transitioning more of his operations toward legitimate enterprises. The information Lyric provided allowed him to outmaneuver rivals without resorting to violence. The connections she made opened doors that had previously been closed to someone with his reputation. He was slowly, carefully, rebuilding his public image from dangerous criminal to respected businessman. It was not easy. Old habits died hard. Old enemies did not forget, but with Lyric beside him, Enzo felt like change was actually possible. The proposal happened on a Tuesday night at Marcello's, 8 months after they first met, in the same corner booth where Enzo had made Lyric his original offer. I have been thinking, Enzo said over wine, about what you said. About being done performing. Okay. Lyric waited. I want to stop performing too. I want to stop pretending this is just a relationship of convenience or a temporary arrangement, or anything other than what it actually is. Enzo pulled out a small velvet box and set it on the table between them. I want to marry you, Lyric Hayes. I want everyone to know that you are mine and I am yours. I want to build a life together that does not require masks or performances or pretending to be anything other than who we actually are. Lyric stared at the box, her heart pounding. Are you sure? Because marrying you means marrying into your world. All the danger and complication and threat that comes with it. I am sure, and I promise to protect you from that danger every day for the rest of our lives. Enzo opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald-cut diamond surrounded by smaller stones. But I need you to be sure, too. I need you to know that this is forever, that I am not letting you go, that you are stuck with me through all the messy, complicated, dangerous parts. I am sure. Lyric's voice was steady despite the tears streaming down her face. I am absolutely, completely, terrifyingly sure, because being with you is the first time in my life I have felt like I can stop running, like I can stop drowning, like I can just be myself, and that is enough. Enzo slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Then I have one more question. What? Will you keep that real smile? The one that actually reaches your eyes? Because that smile is my favorite thing in the world. It is the first real thing I saw when I looked at you, and I want to see it every day for the rest of our lives. Lyric smiled, and this time it was completely genuine. No performance, no mask, just pure, uncomplicated happiness, I promise. From now on, when I smile at you, it always reaches my eyes. Good, Enzo said, pulling her into his arms. Because I am done with performances, too. What you see is what you get. All the dangerous, complicated, deeply in love parts. Those are my favorite parts, Lyric echoed. They are the parts that match mine. The wedding was small and intimate, held at Marcello's 2 months later with only family and close friends in attendance. Lyric wore a simple ivory dress that made her brown skin glow, her natural hair styled in elegant curls that framed her face. Enzo wore a dark suit that emphasized his dangerous elegance, but his expression when he saw her walking toward him was nothing but soft wonder. Rosa cried through the entire ceremony. Giulio gave a toast about how his brother had finally met someone stubborn enough to put up with him. Francesca pulled Lyric aside before the reception and said, You made him believe in love again? That is no small thing. He made me believe in myself again, Lyric replied. That is no small thing either. The reception lasted late into the night, full of laughter and wine and dancing. Lyric danced with her former foster sister Jasmine, who whispered, You deserve all of this happiness, every single bit of it. I know, Lyric said, surprised by her own certainty. For the first time in my life, I actually believe I deserve good things. At midnight, Enzo pulled her onto the terrace overlooking the city. The sounds of the reception faded behind them, leaving them alone under the stars with the city lights spread out before them, like promises of everything still to come. Happy? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Deliriously. Lyric leaned back against him. Less than a year ago, I was drowning, performing for everyone, smiling when I was terrified. And you saw through it. You were the only one who saw through it. Why did you help me? She asked, turning in his arms to face him. Really? Why did a stranger decide to save me? Because I recognized myself in you. Enzo cupped her face in his hands. I spent so many years performing, wearing masks, pretending to be strong when I was barely holding it together. When I saw you doing the same thing, I knew. I knew what that cost. I knew how exhausting it was, and I knew that if someone had helped me earlier, maybe I would not have had to spend so long drowning alone. So you saved me to save yourself? I saved you because you deserved to be saved, and because I knew that if I did not help you, nobody else would. Everyone else believed your performance. Enzo's thumbs brushed away the tears on her cheeks. I am just grateful you let me. Best decision I ever made. Lyric smiled, and the smile reached her eyes, lit up her whole face with genuine happiness. Trusting you, letting you in. Stopping the performance and just being real with someone for the first time in my life. Best decision I ever made, too. Following you out of that gala. Calling you on your performance. Offering you a lifeline instead of just walking away. Enzo kissed her softly. You changed everything for me, Lyric. You made me want to be better. To do better. To build something that mattered instead of just surviving. We both changed, Lyric said. That is what happens when two people stop performing and start being real with each other. We become better versions of ourselves. They stood on the terrace of Marcello's as the night deepened around them, husband and wife now, two people who had found each other in the midst of their separate drownings and had learned to swim together. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Sicily, where Enzo showed Lyric the village where he grew up, introduced her to extended family who welcomed her with warmth and endless food, and took her to the beaches where he used to swim as a child. It was beautiful and simple, a world away from the complications of their life in Portland. The first week they did nothing but eat, sleep, and explore. Enzo took her to his grandmother's grave and told her stories about the woman who had raised him after his mother was overwhelmed by 5 children. He showed her the olive groves his family had tended for generations, the church where he had been baptized, the cliff where he and his brothers used to dive into the Mediterranean. This is where I learned to swim, he told her one afternoon as they floated in the warm water. My father threw me in when I was 4 years old, said I would either swim or drown. That is terrible, Lyric said. That was his way. Enzo pulled her close. But I learned. I always learned. Is that why you saw me drowning? Because you recognized what it looks like? Maybe. Or maybe I just saw someone worth saving. Enzo kissed her forehead. Either way, I am grateful the universe put you in my path. The second week, they ventured further. They explored ancient ruins and medieval churches. They ate pasta made by old women who clucked over how thin Lyric was and piled more food on her plate. They danced at a village festival and drank wine under the stars and made love in their tiny hotel room with the windows open to the sea breeze. One night, lying tangled together with the moonlight streaming through the window, Lyric traced the scars on Enzo's chest. There were several, some small, some larger, each one telling a story of survival. Do they bother you? Enzo asked quietly. They are part of you, Lyric said. They tell me you have survived things that would have broken other people. They remind me that you are stronger than anyone gives you credit for. I am not as strong as people think. I know. Lyric kissed the largest scar, one that ran along his ribs. That is why I love you. Because you let me see the parts that are not strong, the parts that are scared and hurt and human. Nobody has ever seen those parts before. I know that too. And I will protect them. The way you protect mine. Enzo pulled her closer, burying his face in her hair. I do not deserve you. Yes, you do. We both deserve this. Lyric tilted his face up to look at her. We both deserve to stop performing and just be happy. You make it sound so simple. It is not simple, but it is worth it. You are worth it. We are worth it. You are different here, Lyric observed one evening as they watched the sunset over the Mediterranean. More relaxed. Like you can finally breathe. This is the only place I can truly be myself without consequences. Enzo pulled her closer. In Portland, I always have to be on guard. Always calculating. Always performing strength and control. But here, with you, I can just be me. I like this version of you. Lyric kissed his cheek. Though I love all the versions, even the dangerous calculating ones. That is good. Because I am not going anywhere. Enzo smiled. You are stuck with all my versions now. Promise? Promise. When they returned to Portland, they fell into a new rhythm. Lyric continued building her business, which was now one of the most sought-after event planning companies in the city. She hired more staff, took on bigger clients, and used her platform to mentor young women who reminded her of herself. Women who were working 3 jobs, drowning in debt, trying to survive in a world that did not make it easy. The first woman she mentored was named Keisha, a 23-year-old single mother who worked nights at a hotel and dreamed of starting her own catering company. Lyric took her on as an intern, taught her everything she knew, and eventually helped her launch a small business that provided food for corporate events. Why do you do this? Keisha asked her one day. You do not owe me anything. Because someone helped me when I had nothing, Lyric said, and the only way I can repay that is by helping someone else. That is how we break the cycle, by lifting each other up instead of pushing each other down. The second woman was Maya, a former foster kid like Lyric who had aged out of the system and was barely surviving. Lyric hired her as an assistant and paid for her to take business classes at the community college. Within a year, Maya was managing events on her own. The third was Destiny, a young woman fleeing an abusive relationship who needed a job and a reason to believe in herself. Lyric gave her both. You are building an army, Enzo observed one evening, watching Lyric review applications for her internship program. I am building a family, Lyric corrected. These women have nobody. The system failed them. Their families failed them. But I can give them what I never had. A chance. You had me. I have you now. Lyric took his hand. But I spent 27 years alone. Fighting alone. Drowning alone. I do not want anyone else to feel that way. Not if I can help it. Enzo lifted her hand to his lips. You are extraordinary. Do you know that? I am learning to believe it. Lyric smiled. You helped me start believing it. She created a scholarship fund for foster youth interested in event planning or hospitality. She partnered with local organizations to provide job training and placement services. She used her success to create pathways for others, making sure nobody had to make the desperate choices she had made. Enzo continued his transition toward legitimate business. The information network Lyric had helped him build allowed him to outmaneuver rivals through strategic planning rather than violence. His reputation slowly shifted from dangerous criminal to savvy businessman who got things done. It was not perfect, and there were still moments when his past caught up with him, but with Lyric beside him, he felt like real change was possible. The most difficult moment came about a year after the wedding. One of Enzo's former associates, a man named Carlo, who had been with the family since Enzo was a child, was arrested for drug trafficking. The police tried to pressure Carlo into testifying against Enzo, offering him a reduced sentence in exchange for information. Carlo refused. He spent 3 years in prison rather than betray the man he considered family. When Carlo was released, Enzo was waiting outside the prison gates with a job offer and an envelope full of cash. Welcome back, he said simply. You did not have to come, Carlo said, his voice rough with emotion. Yes, I did. You were loyal to me when it cost you everything. That is not something I forget. Enzo handed him the envelope. There is enough in there to get you back on your feet, and when you are ready, there is a position waiting for you. Legitimate this time. No more risks. You are different, Carlo observed. Softer. I am married? Enzo smiled. My wife would not appreciate me getting arrested. She has worked too hard to build her reputation to have it ruined by a husband in prison. Carlo laughed, the first real laugh Enzo had heard from him in years. I look forward to meeting her. Lyric met Carlo a week later at Sunday dinner with Rosa. The older man was awkward at first, clearly unsure how to interact with the woman who had changed his boss so dramatically, but by the end of the meal they were laughing together like old friends. She is good for you, Carlo told Enzo privately. I have never seen you this happy. I have never been this happy." Enzo watched Lyric across the room, laughing with his mother over something in the kitchen. "She is everything I never knew I was looking for." "Then hold on to her. The world will try to take good things from you. Do not let it. I do not intend to." They bought a house in the West Hills with a view of the city and a garden where Lyric could grow flowers. It was their sanctuary, the place where they could truly be themselves without any performance or pretense, where they could just be Lyric and Enzo, two people who had found each other and built something real. The house had 5 bedrooms, which seemed excessive for 2 people, but Lyric filled the extra rooms with purpose. One became her home office, another became a library filled with books they both loved. The third became a guest room for the young women she mentored who needed a safe place to stay. The 4th bedroom remained empty, waiting. Neither of them talked about it directly, but sometimes Enzo would catch Lyric standing in the doorway, looking at the empty space with an expression that was half hope, half fear. "Whenever you are ready," he said one day, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I am not sure I know how to be a mother," Lyric admitted. "I did not have one. Not really. What if I mess it up? Then we figure it out together. That is what we do. We face the scary things together. What if I am like my mother? What if I leave?" "You will not leave." Enzo turned her to face him. "You are not her. You have spent your entire life proving that you are not her. And any child we have will be the luckiest kid in the world, because they will have a mother who knows exactly what abandonment feels like and will never, ever do that to them." Lyric's eyes filled with tears. "You really believe that?" "I know it. The same way I knew you were drowning when everyone else believed your smile. I see you, Lyric. The real you. And the real you would never abandon anyone who needed you. I love you. I love you too." Enzo kissed her softly. "And when you are ready, we will fill this room with as many children as you want. But only when you are ready. There is no rush." One evening, about 18 months after their wedding, Lyric was working in her home office when Enzo appeared in the doorway with an expression she could not quite read. "I need to tell you something," he said. Lyric set down her pen. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong. I just realized I never thanked you properly." "Thanked me for what?" "For seeing me." Enzo crossed the room and knelt beside her chair. "For seeing past the performance I gave everyone else. For understanding that the dangerous, calculating man everyone fears is also just a person trying to survive in the world. For loving both versions of me, the one I show the world and the one I only show you." Lyric cupped his face in her hands. "You did the same for me. You saw that my smile did not reach my eyes when everyone else believed I was fine. You knew I was drowning and you threw me a lifeline. You gave me a chance to stop performing and start living. We saved each other," Enzo said simply. "That is what love does. It sees the truth beneath the performance and decides that truth is worth protecting." "I love you," Lyric said. "All of you. The dangerous parts and the gentle parts. The strategic mind and the vulnerable heart. All of it. I love you too." Enzo stood and pulled her into his arms. "And I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to fake another smile. That every smile you give is real. That you never have to perform again unless you choose to. That is the best promise anyone has ever made me." They stood in her office holding each other, two people who had learned that the most dangerous performance was pretending you did not need anyone. That real strength came from letting someone see you completely and trusting them not to use that vulnerability against you. Lyric Hayes had spent 27 years perfecting the art of the fake smile, the smile that looked real but did not reach her eyes, the smile that convinced everyone she was fine when she was falling apart. Enzo had seen through it in an instant, and instead of exploiting that vulnerability, he had offered her a way out, a chance to stop performing, a partnership built on honesty rather than illusion. Together, they had learned that real love was not about perfect performances or carefully maintained facades. It was about seeing each other clearly, broken parts and all, and choosing to build something together anyway. 2 years after the night they met, Lyric stood at a charity gala similar to the one where Enzo had first approached her. She was planning the event, moving through the crowd with her professional grace, greeting guests and ensuring everything ran smoothly. But this time, her smile was real. It reached her eyes. It reflected genuine happiness and confidence rather than desperate performance. A young woman approached her, another event planner just starting out. Lyric recognized the look in her eyes immediately. the fear hiding behind professional competence, the smile that did not quite reach the eyes, the performance of someone drowning while everyone else thought she was swimming. "Are you okay?" Lyric asked quietly. The woman's smile brightened, becoming even more fake. "Of course. Everything is fine." "Your smile does not reach your eyes," Lyric said gently. "And I know that because mine did not either. Not for a very long time." The woman stared at her, the mask slipping for just a moment. "I do not know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Lyric pulled out her business card. "When you are ready to stop performing and ask for help, call me. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we are drowning and let someone throw us a lifeline. Why would you help me?" "Because someone saw through my performance when nobody else did. And it saved my life." Lyric squeezed the woman's hand. "You do not have to drown alone. Remember that." She walked away, back to Enzo, who was waiting for her by the bar. He smiled when he saw her, and she smiled back. A real smile. One that reached her eyes. "What was that about?" he asked, paying it forward. Lyric slipped her arm through his. "Someone once saw that my smile did not reach my eyes and decided I was worth saving. Maybe I can do the same for her." "You are extraordinary," Enzo murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Do you know that? Only because you made me believe it." Lyric leaned into him. "Only because you saw me when I was pretending and decided the real me was worth knowing." "Always," Enzo said. "Always worth knowing. Always worth saving. Always worth loving." They stood together at the gala, two people who had learned that the most important thing in life was not the performance you gave the world, but the truth you shared with the person who saw past it. Lyric Hayes had spent most of her life perfecting fake smiles. Now, finally, she only smiled when it reached her eyes, and she smiled every single day.